the legend says that you must close your windows at night to keep it out of the house. Deep within the America South, there is a plant that goes and spreads its roots everywhere. Anything it touches, it kills. A plant that the residents of the area are very familiar with, so much so they are actually afraid of the plant, and some of them will go even as far as sharing horror stories regarding the mythos of this plant. This plant has caused so many problems in America, and specifically in the South region, that after decades the country hasn't fully recovered from it. Today we are covering one of my most favorite cases, that is Kudzu.
Residents say Kudzu is growing uncontrollably through neighborhoods affected by the fires. Now, Kudzu can grow more than a foot every day and can be very difficult to kill off.
And Kudzu is the type of plant that surrounded the ecosystem of the South, including both animals and forests, and as we are going to learn later, even people themselves. Many view Kudzu as an alien species that has invaded the South to the point of no return. So this video is going to be about the ecological invasion of Kudzu and specifically the South. If you like those type of videos, let me know by liking the video, by subscribing, comment down below what you think of this plant after you have watched the video. Let me know what you think, because I want to cover different subjects for this channel. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening to this. I will read to you one of James Dickey's quotes just to give you an idea how the local people used to see Kudzu, and it goes with something like this. Up the telephone poles, which rear half out the leafage, as though they would shriek like things smothered by their own green, mindless, unkillable ghosts. In Georgia, the legend says that you must close your windows at night to keep it out of the house. Kudzu is more than a plant or a vine. It has, over the past century, influenced the American folklore, music, literature, entrepreneurship, and of course the landscapes, the forests, and the soil. So again, today I wanted to take a trip and talk about this rare plant and all of the history behind it. My name is Kavou and this is KavouCrypt. It's a second channel I have where I love to cover subjects like those. And in my opinion, today we are talking about one of the most interesting, I will dare to call it post-apocalyptic, and I will explain why plants or vines to ever existed. Kudzu is a vine that has many names, such as Mile a Minute because of how fast it grows, Foot at Night Vine because of all of the horror stories, Chinese or Japanese arrowroot, also you can see its leaves looking like arrows, hence the name, or Pueraria lobata, which translates into Kudzu, or Kohemp, which goes for weed, because of course people have tried to smoke this thing. One of my personal favorite names for it is Human Hubris, which completely explains what this plant has done to the South and the impact that it had in the past, also the impact that it has to this very day. And before I continue, you might ask me, Kavou, why cover this? Well, you see, I'm not American, but I remember watching many media including Kudzu, and I became very obsessed since I was a kid about this plant. One of my most favorite media has been Fallout games, and in the Fallout games, specifically in Fallout New Vegas, there was this particular vault that went by the name of Vault 22. Vault 22 haunted me to this very day because it served to show how wrong can an experiment go when it comes to messing with nature and how deadly and dangerous it can be, let alone horrifying. There is nothing more scary than walking in a forest only to realize there is no sound.
When everything seems calm and nice, you just don't know what might be looking at you from deep within the forest.
And when it comes to Vault 22, that's because everything is covered by it. In Vault 22, of course, given that this is Fallout, you also had the plant people and some other monsters that, I'm gonna spoil it, we don't have those, at least yet, in the south, but just the idea of a plant spreading so deep and so thick that it completely overtakes anything it touches, in Vault 22 case, killing the population and absorbing not only the ecosystem of it, but all the oxygen levels, even growing out in the radioactive wasteland, which again, there are some cases where Kudzu has done this in real life that I'm going to cover later. All of those things combined made me to feel fascinated about this plant, so much so that I've wanted to make a video. And I'm very sure the developers of Fallout New Vegas have created Vault 22 with Kudzu in mind. I think I'm the first person to say that Kudzu serves as an Easter egg when it comes to Vault 22. Now let's speak a little bit about the vine itself and how it got introduced in the United States. Before I go, there is lots of information around the internet or in the media about Kudzu, so you might ask, where did I got my information? And that's a good question. I've read a bunch of reports and documents, such as the reports of Richard J. Blaustein, some official documents that trail all the way back in the 40s, and one of my most favorite ones, a book called Devoured, the extraordinary story of Kudzu, the vine that ate the South, written by Aurela Horn-Muller. So I've gathered lots of information about it, and again, I am not familiar with doing this type of videos, so I will do my best to be brief. If you want to learn everything about this strange vine, I think your best source will be Muller's book, because it explains not only the vine itself and its cognitive status, as most of the reports that I've went through do, but also explains you the mythos around it, the tales, and also the conclusion and the benefits. It's a nice read, especially if you like plants. Everything started at 1876 with the first American warfare that happened in Philadelphia, which is the same organization that introduced the telephone, by the way, which is super badass if you ask me. The American warfare was essentially an organization where the best minds of all over the world will come and start introducing new ideas and try to pitch the next hot thing. And that's where Kudzu came to the picture, being described as a remarkable, hardy, climbing vine that can be planted on any environment, and it's distinct by its dense shade and how fast it can be regenerated, how versatile it is, and how fast it spreads. Keep that in mind because we're going to return to that way later. And it was common knowledge that it could grow up to a height of 40 or even 50 feet high, and that it flourishes where nothing else grows, in both best and the poorest soil. Meaning, with this ancient tech known as Kudzu, every American could grow this very plant even in the most deserted areas or areas with the worst type of soil, which was the case in South America at the time. Kudzu can be turned into literally anything, food or even chocolate, cloth, wine, chips, and it can be used for healthcare products. In China specifically, they are using Kudzu as a traditional medicine to treat alcohol alcoholism or to prevent the effects of it. It also helps with cardiovascular diseases, menopausal symptoms, diabetes, fever, common cold, and as we are going to see later in the video, in the 2020s there is scientists that have figured out a way to turn Kudzu into natural resources such as oil and energy fuel. You could easily take this plant and raise your livestock such as cows, goats, or any other animals you had into Kudzu patches. Since it grows that fast, the animals could feed on it and it was a win-win situation. And since the plant is so high in protein, it's very palatable to animals comes to consuming the plant. Have I told you that Kudzu can be turned into paper? Which means I will no longer feel sad when trees get turned into paper, because I know that as long as we will continue to exist, so will Kudzu, and as long as Kudzu exists, we will never be out of paper. That was one of the main usages of it back in China and Japan. We have unlocked infinite amount of paper thanks to Kudzu. So the idea in America was that Kudzu will be this ideal vine, this wonder plant that could grow and offer only positives to any environment, including the animals, the ecosystem, the residents, offering a plethora of products. It will help everyone. I mean, you can turn this plant into chocolate, so it cannot be that bad, right? In Florida, for example, Charles Lilly was making early statements calling the plant as the miracle vine. So Kudzu was getting very hyped up. So let's sum everything up. Kudzu gets introduced into the American market, the main usage of it being soil erosion to boost the damaged soil due to the timber farming and other harmful activities the natives were doing in the south. Kudzu will be this healing mechanism for the land. You see, the problem was not only the plant, but reasons like the depression, World War happening, and also the sound dying out, and not literally but the lands, due to the abusive timber farming that was happening, leaving most of the soil being damaged, just to name a few. So let's get down to the root of the problem. Yeah, I know it's late, so you might ask, things look fine for now, so what's the problem? The federal government stepped in later in the 1930s, so we are moving on when it comes to the timeline. The federal government introduced Kudzu to the locals, and because the land soil was doing very bad and most of the farmers were leaving their farms, did I also mention that the industrialization was happening, meaning that most of the people were leaving the local villages just to find a better future inside the cities. When you look to a big catastrophe, it's very common that it's not just one problem but quite many of them happening at the same time. It's like pulling off a combo in Soul Calibur or Tekken, but a really bad one. So the federal government tried to sell Kudzu as this perfect plant that is going to help the livestock to eat on this very cheap source of protein, that the farmers could also use Kudzu to grow their farms and also fix the soil issue. The government was mailing seedlings of Kudzu to farmers, a decision made by Charles Please. So in the 1902, it became a normality by the government to mail to the locals seedlings of Kudzu for them to plant, and later on in the 1910s, Charles Please was the very first person who made his company and shipped all of those seeds and vines to pretty much everyone in the south, including materials made out of it in order to use for livestock and animals. Because of how much the federal government was in love in a way with Kudzu, it became mainstream and apparently everybody was using it. From the early 1900s all the way to the 1930s, everybody knew what Kudzu was. So Kudzu very soon became became the plant of hope, and the federal government wanted to push it even harder, so the Soil Conservation Service paid the farmers to plant it to their lands. At first, it brought many farmers back in business, but as we're going to learn in the story, what happens when you try to plant something alien that should not exist in your land, and trust me, they plant a lot of it.
Burn scars are nearly gone, replaced in some neighborhoods by a plant that grows and grows and grows.
We used to have some other animals that used to be here, and they seem to have disappeared.
You see, in Japan, which is from where this plant originates, there is natural control systems around the plant to take care of it, such as other plants that feed on it, the fungi and the pests, the pathogens, the climate and the soil itself, and also the Kudzu beetles that feast on the plant. There are many ways on the ecosystem in Japan that take care of Kudzu so it doesn't get out of control. Well, you see, in America, none of that exists, especially in the south, where they have a very good climate to grow the vine. So all of these protective meters did not exist, which meant Kudzu went crazy and digivolved in this extremely thick, dense vine that literally, and I mean literally, spread everywhere. Just to give you an idea, there was even railroads that got damaged so much that trains could not pass because their rails were literally gone, absorbed by Kudzu. And this later on will bring the South in a national alarm, which is when things get spicy. So again, we are in the 1930s, where the federal government is pushing farmers to plant this plant. They are even start to create financial plans to pay them. The South doesn't have any protective measures to maintain the plant, and given again the depression, the financial problems, World War I and II coming out, all of those things made Kudzu to get imported in crazy amounts. And as Aristotle once said, all problems are caused by extremes, especially with Kudzu. He didn't say the last part, but I've made that up. And before I continue, I want to give you an idea, because I'm not sure if I've mentioned this, but how fast this plant grows, so you can get the picture. The plant grows between 5 and 8 inches a day, which means you could sit there for a day or two and you could see the plant completely extend. Some people say they could see it grow in real time, which is horrifying if you think about it. The plant grows so fast that creates other spawns or hosts similar to it, having the same DNA. I will explain why this is bad. You see, Kudzu is having its main root, but if a full year goes by or close to a year, its main root spreads and it gets multiple of those, and you get the idea. There was even a test that happened by NASA that they took Kudzu and put it in their National Space Station to see how fast it grows on zero gravity, and the plant grew almost twice as fast, which means gravity or space doesn't play any role, which is insane. The American grid has embraced this vine and tried to introduce it in their daily life, and in Muller's book it says clearly that Kudzu helps to restore and correct the levels of nitrogen and oxygen which is needed for plants to grow. I'm not a smart person, guys, but I can pretend to be when I read smart people's books. So we are moving to the 1930s, where the first negatives are coming from this vine, because it was accelerating so fast and it was growing and it was starting to get out of hand. A famous scientist and botanist known as David Fairchild, which I think many people know to this day, who lived in the same period during the Great Depression, happened to work on the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, and he started to take a personal interest in the vine, and he was studying the plant and making experiments. He bought many seeds and he was growing it again for his own curiosity. Due to the Great Depression and the plant being pushed into mass mass production, the United States was trying to find even more ways to help with the damaged soil, the economy, and everything. So David, her child, happened to have the solution. That was Kudzu. In the 1935, the government started planning the vine for literally everything, and they started creating a financial program that is going to give motives for everyone to buy and plant a plant. So the government comes in with this idea of using Kudzu as an incentive, paying $8 to $10 for every acre, which is approximately around 4,046 square meters of planted Kudzu. You have to understand, back in the day, which is 100 years ago, the average farmer without an education could make roughly $150 with $200 per acre, and if you put today's standards of inflation, it's a little bit more than that. As you can assume, everybody and their mothers were starting planting the hell out of Kudzu, and they didn't only plant it for usage of restoring the soil, but also to use it to create other products, which I will explain how that also affected the health of the locals. So at the start it worked, and normal farmers were making so much money out of it by planting hundreds of acres literally everywhere across the South and the United States, and because of the high payment everybody came and did the same. So the vine was not just a vine, but it became an idea. It started spreading hope, quite literally, as it was growing itself, and there was even radio stations, government programs, everybody was calling the seed of Kudzu the plant of hope. How much a plant can actually affect and change and influence the daily life of people and communities, which is the story of Kudzu itself, which I find so fascinating. I don't know what you think about it, let me know down in the comments. So with the years passing, Kudzu became so common in America that even a club was emerged called the Kudzu Club, and it had its own radio station, founded by Channing Cobb in the 1943, who was constantly talking about it. That Channing Cobb guy was also the founder of the club, and he really loved the plant. Did I mention the club had over 20,000 members, just to give you an idea how big of a deal it was.
Life on the farm can be easy. Certainly it is easy here on the Yellow River Farm where we hold forth. It is a wonderful thing to own a piece of land and to play with it and to induce it to produce food and clothing and shelter and security and independence. We formed the Kudzu Club of Georgia, which has since grown into the Kudzu Club of America. We have answered thousands of Kudzu communications from all over the world.
All the way up to the 1940s, the United States government has planted over 90 million seedlings of Kudzu, which is around 3 million acres. That's around 4,680 square miles, which is a lot. Remember when we talked about third parties? Well, in the 40s, something very big happened, which is also going to affect the situation. A guy with a funny stash has started something called World War II, and due to many farmers having to leave their farms and their fields and their lands to join the war, the Industrial Revolution happening at the same time, where many people starting to move to the cities and leave their villages, many of the farms where Kudzu was planted before started to become empty, very much like my social life. And do you remember when I've told you how fast Kudzu grows? Now imagine what happens when you leave a land with dozens up to hundreds of acres with planted Kudzu and let it grow without any control for more than a few months and even years. You have this plant that grows literally 5 with 8 inches a day, and you have those two massive events happening at the same time and everybody leaving. Many of the farmers left, and when they came back, they realized most of their houses and farms and even villages were just gone, absorbed by the roots of Kudzu.
By a plant that grows and grows and grows.
Many farmers tried to remove it, and another problem was that Kudzu was extremely versatile. It had a very good defense, it was so dense and so hard that could not be cut easily or dug around. Things like machetes and blades or even chainsaws at the time seemed to be very ineffective, and the plant was even resistant against fire. So you have a plant that cannot be removed by most measures, that cannot be burned, and it's literally everywhere, and it's growing even fast. The government officials came up to destroy the soil with chemicals, and they realized because of the plant's density and because it was literally everywhere, rooted so deep, it was regenerating so fast that even chemicals could not remove it or kill it. Oh, did I also forgot to mention that this plant grows in real time, like 5 with 8 inches a day? So again, my apologies if I'm repeating, but let's get down to the specifics. Kudzu has a primary root, one that grows and the leaves come around. Well, you see, this main root can grow over, get ready, 100 feet long in any direction, including the ground, and over 400 pounds, weighing twice as the average American, and I had to look it up to correct those numbers. The average American weighs 199 pounds, just to get an idea how crazy those numbers are. Did I mention that the stems and the branches that come off the plant or the main root after 10 months or close to a year, they become their own roots, repeating the cycle, meaning that it's spreading and literally cloning itself. And don't forget that Kudzu was in the American South for over 4 decades now, so that's a lot of new hosts. It does sound like a zombie apocalypse, and yeah, it can also grow half a meter a day, by the way. I personally visit one of my farms during the summer season, and I am missing for like 9 and 10 months, and I have to remove lots of parasites, lots of bad plants and seeds. Imagine if I had planted Kudzu on my garden and I came back after 10 months. This is what the average American faced, and it gets even worse than that. There were many cases where people returned back and they didn't find not only farms, but railroads were gone, streets were completely overtaken by Kudzu, houses, buildings, forests were all absorbed by it, and Kudzu, as mentioned in the book, spreads everywhere like a parasite, and it absorbs and replaces all life around it with its own, including animals, buildings, trees, and everything. One of the many problems is that if you remove the main root, which good luck finding that, by the way, if the plant was there for more than a year, which was the case, it meant that you have to find the other new main roots. It was almost an impossible task to do when it comes to removing the plant. And I don't know, but just the picture of visiting railroads and caves and tunnels only to see literally roots of Kudzu coming around from every single corner from within the walls sounds like such an apocalyptic scene that I find it fascinating. There is a company called RV Farms that specializes around Kudzu, say that it needs 200 goats to eat 1 square meter of Kudzu, and that is a lot of goats. And you might ask why I mention this? Because one of the best ways to remove Kudzu was to bring lots of animals and have them eat the plant. The average American did not have that many goats or animals, and when you understand how much of Kudzu we have, we will need hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million of animals to start eating the damn thing. And the vine is also resistant to the cold, and even the cold won't kill it, it will only slow it down, which I just realized this sounds like a line in a horror movie. Fast forward, the vine climbed and ate literally everything, removing all life around it, including other plants and forests. It devoured literally everything that was green around it, including buildings and streets, of course, and animals. And Kudzu does work like a parasite, and it grows on top of other plants, and its roots absorb theirs, merging in and completely killing the other trees, forest, and grass. AKA, Kudzu is essentially this eldritch abomination, spreading its tendrils, corrupting and killing everything everything and replacing it with more kudzu.
The city of Gatlinburg says it is concerned about the spread of kudzu on private property.
Kudzu, like any other plant, takes advantage of the absence of competition.
So many of the areas in the south started to turn into literal green wastelands of kudzu. We are moving up because in the 1950s there was safety meters taken by the federal government to remove the threat of kudzu, and in the 1953 an official program started with the goal that kudzu should be banned, and it got banned as a permissible plant, which meant people could not grow it, the financial benefits were cut off, and the saddest part, the Kudzu Club was also affected by this. I want to share with you cool stories and rumors and even creepypastas of warnings of the common folk that I found out in different sources, such as if you have a dog or a baby in the house, you should shut down the window at night so kudzu won't grow through it and overtake the baby or the dog, which is absolutely horrifying. Also, here is few more. The vine will pull you down under the bed and eat you. The vine will grab your feet when you are walking out. It will tangle it and drag you. There was even stories of creepypastas of plant men creatures made out of kudzu moving and chasing people, which I find it hilariously close to Vault 22 in Fallout. We move to an age now where everybody is starting to find the plant very dangerous.
The city of Gatlinburg says it aggressively pursues kudzu eradication in all city landscaped areas and parks.
And Yongen and a group of his neighbors spoke in front of the Gatlinburg City Commission last week. They're asking for help in an effort to kill off the kudzu before it causes even more problems.
So what happened? What did America do to restore this crisis? Well, they did absolutely nothing. They literally gave up and they just let the vine go through and do its thing. And before you ask me, what about chemicals? Well, there was research about it and scientists figure out they will have to constantly spray the main roots of kudzu daily for over 10 years just to damage the roots enough to slow down its growth. So again, the best solution that was sought by the government was to do absolutely nothing. The officials started blaming each other, shifting blame from different governments and different groups, and nobody stepped up to find a solution for it, which is again why nobody did anything about this. And I don't think Trump will come out or anybody and do anything about kudzu with sayings like "made kudzu great again," although that would be very funny. There is estimated over 9 million acres of kudzu in the south, but those estimates were made decades ago. Anytime any organization will ask for funding to find solutions or further investigate the plan or find the root of the problem, the government just says no, completely looks on the other side, literally like the meme with the fire. One of the things I've learned personally from reading about kudzu is that you should never mess with nature. Let's speak about some of the consequences of this whole thing up to this day. Kudzu costed over 120 billion in damages when it comes to destroyed buildings, lost property, environmental damage, animal extinction, and although it didn't kill people directly, there was noticed to be a very suspicious liver harm and liver diseases that came up with the usage of the plant. So in my book, kudzu does have a kill count. It might not be like the plant man chasing and eating you alive. It also did more damage to the farmers than it did good because it completely overtook the soil, meaning that nothing can grow on top of it. There is also this funny saying in the south that any building that is going to be left abandoned by any period of time, it will be overtaken by kudzu. So if you want to sell your house or move up or do something different, yeah, good luck with that. From 1940 up to recent 2024, kudzu has caused over 1.2 trillion damage in dollars and roughly $500 million a year, scaling up. Closing up, it's sad because looking at this whole kudzu situation in America and what happened with the South, I think it's sad because we could learn so much about about Kudzu do so many things with it when it comes to solving emergencies, such as the one that this plant has caused. Due to its mythos and its bad reputation and history, almost nobody wants to deal with it, let alone everyone seems to be afraid to even mention the vine. So if you ask yourself how much damage can a seed or a plant do to a nation, look no further than the history of Kudzu, which has drastically shifted the biomass of its landscape, conquering the south and completely changing it forever. And that was it. I think Kudzu can be used correctly like Japan does, but only in a controlled environment, and I think the United States, since they were the ones who created this problem, they should stop looking under the rug and actually start taking steps to solving this issue. I think the good ending in this whole story is that Kudzu has so many usages and so many things to offer to humanity as a whole, and even to this day, although Kudzu went from good to bad to villain, there is still many Americans to this day that involve their daily life and their daily routines around Kudzu, and it's very wholesome to see. That was the history of Kudzu, also known as the vine that ate the South. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comment section if you did. Leave a like, subscribe. I'm going to cover different subjects like that. My name was Kavou, and yeah, take care, and don't forget, if you have Kudzu outside, to always look through the window.